I love going to drive-in movies in the summer, maybe because that's when they're open, particularly in the Northeast, because it's freaking cold and they're closed in the winter. But I love me a drive-in movie in the summer. So think of those iconic summer experiences, throw them together, mush them up, right? And then everyone could sort of take responsibility for ensuring that in fact happens. And we can plot that out on the calendar, because as you know, you blink and the summer's over. And then so often we as parents can feel guilty that we weren't really as present as we wanted to be. And then also we can start unconsciously resenting our kids when we're trying to get work done and they're boundary violating, right? It kind of feels like COVID again sometimes in the summer for the families I work with, because they're trying to obviously put food on the table and do them and take care of their careers, but they also now are in loggerheads with the fact that their children are present. So this is really where that intentionality comes in, and planning and setting it up, right? Organizing, again, structured versus unstructured time throughout the day, but also let's go micro and macro. Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with Thomas Miller. Are you tired of your tweens, teens, and young adults' negative behaviors and poor choices holding you emotionally hostage, controlling your family, and ruling your life? If you answered yes, then you are in the right place. This podcast is a community for courageous parents just like you who come here to gain effective tools, skills, and take action so they can change their tween, teen, or young adult's life and improve their family's future. Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with your host, Thomas Miller. Today's topic is how to remain sane in the summer. If you are a parent like me, you might already be feeling a little insane and kind of crazy. It's always this like funny catch-22 I find with the summer. It's super exciting and amazing, and I'm so happy to have my kids home. And then there's this point, kind of like right now, I'm recording this on July 17th, and I'm starting to atrophy a little bit and starting to peak a little bit toward when does school start. I can manage my own guilt and be honest and share that. I don't know if other parents are feeling the same way. I'm also feeling at the same time like, oh my God, where did the summer go? And trying to also claw back, of course, opportunities for even more presence, more memories, etc. We just came back from a couple of days away at Lake George. If you have never been, it's a beautiful part of the country in New York. And that was wonderful. It was just wonderful to have that reset. And it's amazing how vacations sort of help melt away a lot of negative dynamics. There's a bazillion memes out there, I'm sure that y'all have seen, that say, you know, I go on vacation so I get to fight with my kids in a new place. So there's definitely moments of that too on vacation. Vacations aren't always, right, splendid and glorious and removed from any kind of negative family dynamics. But today I want to help you set your summer up for success, set your kids up for success. It's amazing how it's just such an abyss of structure. You know, as much as we try, and some of you, I'm sure, way better than my wife and I, we have, you know, all these wonderful, at times, Pinterest expectations of how the summer's going to go. And then here we are, July 17th, and we've already obviously accomplished a lot, and it's been pretty good. We've rolled out a few helpful norms, but now the media slice, oh my God, is blooming, right? And it feels like way too much screens, not enough outside, not enough just productive, purposeful sort of activities. And I think the trick for the summer is trying to find that perfect balance between structure and the opportunity to let kids kind of be and decompress. I'm a big fan of getting kids outside. There's a great book called Last Child, I think it's Last Child in the Woods or Last Child Left in the Woods, which is about free, unstructured play. So don't get me wrong. The message here today is not overschedule the crap out of your kids and make sure that every second of their summer is scheduled. That is not fun. On the flip side, kids thrive when there's structure. It is so helpful for their sense of being, their sense of wellness. They feel in control. It actually reduces any kind of anxiety that they might have. So it's really, 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 really important. Kids love structure, believe it or not, as much as parents feel that kids are always pushing back and trying to, right, push limits and gain control and gain leverage. Yes, that's all true. They definitely can, engage in all kinds of pushback and oppositionality and manipulation. But believe it or not, children will push back trying to find that edge. They want to figure out where they end and where you as the parent or parents begin. It sounds crazy, but it's true. I always use the analogy that if you push up against the wall and the wall receded and you can just make your house bigger, you would just keep pushing up against every wall until eventually your house was abutting your neighbor's house, right? Well, your children are the same way. If they could push up against their own wall and it would move into their siblings' room or your room, they wouldn't care, right? They would just keep kind of colonizing the house. So structure actually, believe it or not, helps them feel secure, motivated, and productive because it creates a routine. And it actually, like I said, really reduces, if you have a kiddo who's struggling with anxiety, they might be doing a lot of what's called info gathering and questioning what's next, what's happening next. And that lack of kind of clarity around what tomorrow looks like or what does the next week look like can create fight, flight, or freeze, right? And they could be a little anxious and flighty. They could be a little fighty. They could be a little frozen, right? And unfortunately, social media and/or screens or just video games is a great anesthetic. And I'm not saying it's a healthy anesthetic, but it's a great anesthetic. And so the point of today is to really want to set these kiddos up for success, because kids more often than not get bored without structure. And when kids are bored, guess what? Boredom often creates behavioral challenges, arguments, pushing back, etc. For all my, parents of ADHD kiddos out there, right? Boredom, as you know, tends to kind of be the devil's playground, so to speak, right? It tends to be a place where kids will act out and start engaging in kind of pushback and button pushing and maybe just create a lot of power and control issues. And just, again, they're looking for containment and they're looking for also engagement, right? So let's give that to them. Obviously, if you sent your kid to a sleepaway camp from June, 15th through September 1, then you don't really need to be putting too much of these practices into place because you've kind of exported some of these challenges, right, to said summer camp. And a biggest fan of kids having camp experiences. So no hate or shade there at all. It's super important that kids have these amazing experiences to go and be a kid and be away from parents and be able to separate and individuate and really come of age. So there's so much value there. So the other thing is just, it's really important to help kids have life skills around responsibility and time management. If you have a teen at home who has a job, right? Let's set them up for success, right? Let's make sure they're getting up for their job, right? Let's not be enabling them, right? And setting up negative norms that are going to bleed right into the school year. Nothing worse than the power struggles. My phone blows up like crazy or my email blows up like crazy right around like October, like 1st to the 15th, because all these norms that have gestated and developed over the summer are now creating all these problems, right? When these kids are hitting now, right, school year. And so if they were staying up to 3 a.m. and not getting up till 11 or 12, well, guess what? That's not going to fly when school comes. And now all of a sudden you're seeing all of these issues, right, around that transition period because parents didn't do the work. So let's do the work, right? It's July 17th when I'm recording this. By the time you hear this, I'm sure it'll be closer to August. But the point is that, believe it or not, you blink from August 1 to September 1, those 4 weeks, that can be tough for a kiddo to transition. It's almost like going from different time zones, right? If they've been allowed to stay up to, midnight or whatever beyond, and now all of a sudden they have to get up at, 7 a.m. or 7:15, that's going to be a really tough reentry process for them. So what we could do now, while we don't have to expect them to get up maybe at 7 or 7:15, we can begin to gradiate, right, those expectations and start dropping in routines that will actually trend really positively toward the fall. So again, acknowledge it's tempting to just, like let them be. Like we need to just acknowledge that, right? Because they have been in structure, they have been in sports, they have been in all these crazy hobbies and interests, and you've been running too. Let's be real. I know so many parents, myself included, get burnt out by the sports, the clubs, the this, the theater, the ballet, the whatever they're into, right? The cheer, the big up to the cheer moms, big up to the dance dads, big up to the soccer, lacrosse, whatever, right? Theater. So, and yeah, it's nice to put your feet up. It's nice to kind of lay back a little. All for that. All for, again, unstructured, not crazily scheduled time. But I think you could be intentional about that. I think the key for the summer is think about rhythms, right? More so than scheduling, right? Don't think of it as a to-do list. Think of it more as we want to create these rhythms. I like to have there be a morning rhythm, an afternoon rhythm, and an evening rhythm. That morning rhythm involves waking up, right? Your teen or tween should be waking up on their own. Then there should be the rhythm of some form of connection, like at least a hi and maybe a hug and maybe a conversation around where they're at. Then there should be a rhythm of contribution. I'm a big fan of wake up, connect, contribute. And that contribution could be as simple as emptying the dishwasher, could be as simple as making their own breakfast, could be as simple as helping you whatever, right, with whatever small task. Then they can have some independence and free time. If your child, though, is waking up and immediately rolling right into screens for 3-4 hours, right, because you're working, you're on virtual meetings, you got a lot going on, or you're at work, I get it. But that's not the best, right, rhythm to establish. We can create periods throughout the day where they have free time and they can obviously be on screens before lunch, after lunch, whatever. But there really should be some element of, again, connection, contribution, and then I would just say purposeful activity, whether that be outdoor playtime, sports, anything, reading, some kind of educational thing, some kind of creative outlet, whatever it is, right? So there really has to be some activities that are engaging but flexible. You can sit down and have a weekly meeting with your kids where you plot out, right? Whether it's a visual calendar, whether it's just a conversation, what ostensibly are the activities, for kids. It's so important to have, right? Those hangouts, those sleepovers, those whatever. It can be challenging if a bunch of kids are away at camp and other kids are not, or, certain families are on vacation, so on and so forth. I'm just really trying to hammer home the message here that please let's not let screens become the default babysitter over the summer. And let's not miss moments to get to the beach, to go on that hike, to try that new cool mountain biking thing or skateboarding or whatever the heck it is, right? These are real amazing moments for your kids to start separating and individuating, to have a sense of mastery, have more empowerment, and to be moving, right? To be moving and not just, again, hiding in screens. Make sure your kids are involved. I see families all the time who take this very top-down approach. It's kind of like they're just this top-down, old school, archaic, manager versus leader. That's like, this is how it's going to be. And then I see the other extreme, which is a super laissez-faire, creating so much, let's say, such a democratic approach where the kids have all the power and all the say. I think we need a Goldilocks approach, something just in the middle, right? So if we're having certain goals that we want as parents for the kids, totally appropriate. Engage them though. What are the goals you want, right? Maybe they do want to go to this concert. Maybe they do want to go in this thing. Maybe they do want to hang out with so-and-so. And again, they're kids, so they're not going to give you this information in June about the sleepover that's going to be happening in August. But the more that we can have at least a weekly meeting to just check in and make sure that you're on the same page, right? And moving from the same playbook, that's really going to be important. They need to have a sense of ownership over their summer routine. And let's get input too. I mean, for me, I don't know about for y'all, but if you think about what are the iconic summer things for you, each family member can put that out there. and you can create this beautiful, family soup, so to speak. For me, you got to go to the beach, and beyond once, but you got to go to the beach. For me, the beach is iconic with the summer. I think a water park for my wife is kind of an iconic thing. I know for my kids, they absolutely think of some kind of cool, epic, amusement park type thing, or even we're actually going to be going tubing coming up, which is going to be cool, / whitewater rafting, which would be a lot of fun. So some kind of epic, cool activity, right? That's memory generating. Those are really important. So if everyone can kind of come forward. Oh, one more thing is totally a drive-in movie. I don't know why, but I love going to drive-in movies in the summer, maybe because that's when they're open, particularly in the Northeast, because it's freaking cold and they're closed in the winter. But I love me a drive-in movie in the summer. So think of those iconic summer experiences, throw them together, mush them up, right? And then everyone can sort of take responsibility for ensuring that in fact happens. And we can plot that out on the calendar, because as you know, you blink and the summer's over. And then so often we as parents can feel guilty that we weren't really as present as we wanted to be. And then also we can start unconsciously resenting our kids when we're trying to get work done and they're boundary violating, right? It kind of feels like COVID again sometimes in the summer for the families I work with, because they're trying to obviously put food on the table and do them and take care of their careers, but they also now are in loggerheads with the fact that their children are present. So this is really where that intentionality comes in, and planning and setting it up, right? Organizing, again, structured versus unstructured time throughout the day, but also let's go micro and macro, right? Micro perspective of let's look at the goals for the day, really small short-term goals. Let's look at the goals for the week. Your children and your goals may not be 100% in alignment, which is totally fine, which is why, again, we want to have these conversations so we can establish really clear expectations so they know what to expect. And again, I'm a big fan of this idea of rhythms, more so than to-dos. Nothing wrong with to-do lists, right? Some things just got to get done, right? You got to fold some laundry, got to clean your room. Nothing wrong with some daily chores. Again, think of the morning as a wake up, a connect, a contribute, right? Then there's a sense of freedom as opposed to just being wake up, screens for 4 hours. So, depending upon what's going on with your child, I was just on a discovery call earlier with a family with a lot of oppositionality behaviors of their tween, a lot of pushback. Definitely sounds like struggling with some impulse control, struggling at times with taking responsibility, a lot of exporting of blame, a lot of blame shifting, etc. For that child, right? Guess what? Just like you did during the year, but even more so since there's an abyss of structure, you got to lay out really clearly, right? What are the positive consequences and what are the natural negative consequences? So we want to balance rewards and consequences for that child, because that child needs to feel safe. They need to feel that they're in charge. If you think of video games, the reason why a lot of young kids and of course, young adults as well gravitate to video games, they're very linear. They're very clear, right? Do this and get that. It's almost like it's a token economy. So for some kids that really need their world to be that almost black and white, it can be very helpful to use rewards to stick to the schedule as well as natural consequences when rules, let's say, or expectations are broken. So really got to think about how do you need to individualize? And you have 2, 3 children, 4, right? Then you got to really maybe create 4 different approaches. So realize what's at stake here, right? If we don't kind of set the summer up for success and we just let them figure it out, or we just assume that the summer ostensibly will take care of itself, kids are going to feel more overwhelmed and more anxious. And so we really want to set them up to have improved mental health, right? Going into the fall. We've done other episodes around, screens. I've had experts on about, really improving, right, our responsiveness toward kids and really being much more mindful of the negative impact that overuse of screens can have on a child's mental health. So let's realize that we don't want a kid going into the fall with really low energy, low mood, poor sleep regulation, which turns into negative mental health, because the only time that neurotransmitters are being replenished is when people are sleeping, and that includes kids, right? So we need to ensure that kids are getting to bed at a decent hour. Yeah, sleepovers, be a little lax on that. Totally get it. Do kind of the s'mores on vacation. Oh my God, I think we had s'mores every night and cake, and we're way more lax on the bedtime routine. Totally appropriate. Sleepover vacation's great. But can we again begin to look at, there has to be some normalcy, some flow, that while maybe not exactly in alignment with what the fall is going to look like, it can't be so divergent, that again, our tween is waking up at noon and then we're expecting them to throttle back to waking up at 7 a.m. I think there's a way to increase planned structure as a way to actually increase connectedness. If you're working, which I am, and kind of balancing, trying to be present, and be there for my kids, but also flow a lot of space and freedom their way, I know I'm personally going through a little bit of, am I really being successful here? Am I being successful there? And you start evaluating yourself kind of across maybe a more perfectionistic standard. That's not going to help you. But if you spend the time to say, guess what? We're going to connect here. These are the moments on this hike, right? When we do this canoe thing, we do this paddleboard thing, we go on that walk, we play that video game together, we play that board game. That's really going to help. So again, this isn't about creating rigidity. It's actually setting you up for freedom. So again, it's midsummer right now, at least as far as I'm concerned, where I'm recording this. I'm already realizing, like, damn, I got 6-7 weeks left here, and I want to get the most out of that. I want to be as present as humanly possible to come away with this summer feeling like, what a great summer. I refreshed and restored myself. I increased my self-care. I got some personal needs done, i.e. I need to be on the beach, as well as I also gave my kids a healthy, vibrant summer that is obviously creating positive memories. So this is not about rigid control. It's just about building a framework that supports, right, your kids' growth and well-being. So think about what that is, right? Think about what is that perfect balance of over-tolerance versus over-control. What would it look like to structure their day? Engage them 100% in that conversation around what would they like to achieve. Maybe there is still time, right, to get in that one last amusement park or that one more cool thing or that city trip or that whatever trip, right, the trip to the country. And make sure that, you are figuring out, what energetically you can and cannot do. Because there's nothing worse than overpromising and underdelivering, because then you're going to feel guilty. Your kids are going to get frustrated and resentful. It's not going to obviously trend well. You're not going to then feel like, again, you gave them everything. Again, when it comes down to behavioral issues, let's just look at some basics too. I think we forget sometimes how kids eat breakfast every day during the school year. They have lunch at the same time, right? Then they go and if they are involved in sports, they engage in some kind of physical activity. So to transition from that to all of a sudden they're eating breakfast almost like grazing, they're having cereal here and there, right? If there are not clear routines, again, around breakfast, lunch, dinner, throughout the day, there's deep time, let's say, on screens, we're dealing almost with like an addict brain. You're dealing with an unhealthy, dysregulated brain. Hence the reason there's going to be a lot more fights, pushback, push-pull issues, kind of authority issues, if you will. So again, we don't have to be power and control based or dominant or draconian in our approach. If you have a 17, 18-year-old, yes, they're going to be coming and going way more than obviously an 11-year-old, but still helping them to establish a semblance of routines and normalcy is only going to help their emotional regulation. And it's going to help their mental health as well as allow them to feel good. If they are really active in the school year, clubs, activities, this and that, and now all of a sudden, for whatever reason, they got a late start in trying to get a job or a late start on being a counselor in training, let's say, or a volunteer, that's going to create some unhealthy norms. So it's never too late. Believe it or not, you can find volunteer opportunities for your kids if they miss the mark on getting a job. They still may be able to get a job, even if all the college kids or the more eager kids, squeaky wheel gets the oil type kids didn't glom all the jobs. There's still ways to say, okay, look, we kind of, missed the mark here. It's the job scene maybe is dried up a little, but let's find some cool activities. It could be a day camp, a morning camp, or whatever, depending upon financially where you're at. Don't think that you got to, send your kid to some crazy $10,000 a week, summer camp. There's opportunities on a local level within your community that can create positive experiences for them. Maybe there's some mentor thing. Maybe there's something at the Y. Maybe there's, whatever's going on in the community center. Believe it or not, you can reach out to the library. The library is actually super old school, but wealth of resources and information. Go online, right? Check out your town's Facebook. Reach out to the town hall, even see what opportunities there are. We just hooked our son up with a volunteer opportunity at a local food pantry. It's no big deal. It's 2 hours a week. He's going to be stacking some shelves. Freaking awesome. I'm super proud of him for doing it. It's good for his self-esteem. Obviously gets him the hell off screens for at least 2 hours. Gets him at least doing something, as well as, of course, it looks good on the resume. I hate thinking about the stupid resume for college. I like things that are more intrinsically driven than externally driven. But that's the reality of the world we live in. So you could sell it a whole bunch of ways to your kid. But again, find volunteer opportunities. You can't be everything to, them. I get it. You got to work. You got to get your stuff done. But make sure, please take away, there's got to be a rhythm. The rhythm could be a little different than the fall, spring rhythm, as it shouldn't be as intense. But we can't go from structure, routine, sleep regulation for the most part, food regulation for the most part, emotional regulation, exercise, kind of just things having a flow, to all of a sudden an abyss of structure. Also, just quick little PSA, not only is a lack of structure a setup for abuse of, let's say, screens, which is only going to, be a threat to your kiddos' executive functioning skills, as well as their mental health, because as they are, let's say, on screens for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, if that's in fact going on, that's going to completely dysregulate their mood. It's going to shift their ability to hold space from a neurocognitive level, positive things like that walk, like that hike, like that good food, like that more natural activity. That natural activity over time is going to have a diminished return in terms of from a serotonin, norepinephrine, and or dopamine level, because they're almost reducing, let's say, tolerance, right, for the ability to manage frustration. And obviously, they're going to be that much more, addicted, so to speak, to screens. But it's also a huge setup for drinking and drugging. So please be mindful, depending upon where your kid's at in terms of their journey. Yes, sleepovers, cool, great, iconic. However, sleepovers that are completely unstructured with high-risk, super permissive parents, please be mindful, right? Because 8th grade to 9th grade, 9th grade to 10th grade, 10th grade to 11th grade, obviously 11th to 12th, big shifts in norms. So make sure you're also having open-ended conversations with your kiddos about substances, vaping, drinking, drugging, etc. Because when we look the other way, so to speak, and we allow the leash, so to speak, to be that much longer and give kids the opportunities to fail forward, which I'm a huge fan of, we just have to also make sure that we're engaged and we're monitoring and checking for any kind of high risk or red flags, particularly that could be happening at sleepovers if there's either no parent there or there's obviously a super permissive parent there. So it is a very interesting time when we're letting go and our home culture, right, is not maybe as powerful if we've allowed it. So let's get more intentional. Let's create healthier routines, a better flow. Let's be that much more mindful of the need for our kids to obviously be getting 8 hours of sleep, to have close to quasi-normalcy of 3 meals a day, as well as to be engaged in some form of physical activity so that they're getting all that good brain food, as well as we can't export parenting onto whoever parent or whichever camp or whichever, right? So make sure that you're still having touch points, you're still engaging your kids, you're having these good open-ended questions about the boyfriend, the girlfriend, social norms, drinking, drugging, etc. Of course, if age appropriate, if they're younger, I get it, not age appropriate. So you can make the best summer. It's not too late. Create intentionality. Remember, create rhythms, short-term goals for the day, weekly goals. Engage the heck out of your kids so that they have voice and choice. And as always, please sign up for the newsletter so you can get free tips and tools and strategies right to your inbox. If you have a child that you're concerned about, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're stressed, if you're losing sleep, if every day you're just waking up hoping that somehow things will be different, and you want to jump on a free, no-pressure discovery call with me, please just go to my website, fourpeaksparents.com. I'm happy to explore with you whether or not the program is the right fit and whether or not working together is the right step to create a new trajectory and get you and your loved one headed in the right direction. I hope you all have an amazing, awesome, safe summer. Go out and do some cool crap. Set up some amazing stuff that your kids and you will enjoy and keep creating positive memories. Be well and talk to you soon. Bye. Hey everyone, Thomas here. First off, it means the world to me that you took the time to listen to my podcast. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Also, if you want to receive the latest podcast updates, as well as expert parenting tips and practical strategies for navigating your tween, teen, or young adults challenges directly to your inbox, then sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. And most importantly, if you're tired of feeling overwhelmed, stuck, stressed, and are losing sleep because you're constantly worried about your tween, teen, or young adult, your first step is to realize that you still have a choice and can do something about it. I'm ready to help you take action and create the results you desire today. Just go to fourpeaksparents.com and book a free strategy call. Let's do this. Last thing, while you were listening to this show, who was the one person that you thought could really benefit from hearing it? Please share it with them.